Hi, and welcome to Knits, Hooks, and Needle. As you may have noticed, I only have one video up for the cross stitch, and I do hope to update you guys on that. I do have the project still on me. I've just been incredibly busy to start trying to put more content on the channel. Today we're doing the seed stitch, and I like to go thrifting a lot for my yarn because you can find expensive yarns or really popular yarns for a fraction of the price a lot of the time. Even knitting books and crochet books and kits, stuff like that. I'm using Prestige. It's an acrylic yarn and in lavender. So I'm doing purple. Thought I'd make it easier for everybody to see. And my yarn had actually fallen out of my lap earlier, so I'm sorry about that. Using, and I know you probably can't see it very well, a 5.5 knitting needle. I prefer to use circular needles because then that way if I have to set my yarn down, it's just easier for me to know that I'm not going to lose it. I prefer to do the slip stitch by wrapping the yarn around 2 fingers twice. So you got 1, 2, forming 2 strands with the tail over here. And I actually have like a long, no wait. I prefer to have the tail over here. I almost did that wrong. I'm not going to use that short of a tail. Twice. Over, hold, over, hold. Put your needle in, tighten. Now the stitch requires an even number of cast on stitches. I'm doing the long tail cast on. So after you do that, have your tail yarn here, working yarn in the back, put in fingers like this. And you go under, over, through, under, over, through. And make sure not to go too tight. Under, over, through. That's 4. Under, over, through. 5. Under, over, through. 6. Under, over, through. 7. Under, over, through. 8. Under, over, through. 9. And I'm going to do the 10th one. Under, over, through. So you do it with an even number of stitches. I like to hold my tail yarn underneath because that way I don't accidentally use it as my working yarn. I've had that problem before. Another reason why I like working with the circular needles, you don't lose your needles. So the seed stitch starts with doing a knit, purl all the way through. Make sure you have an even number of stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's, we're doing 10. I have a unique way of explaining how to do knit and purl stitches. Knit behind the knee. And yes, I work with my left. I usually prefer to do Portuguese style knitting because my stitches aren't as tight. Purl is in the front of the knee, so bring the yarn to the front, go through the front, bring it through. Make sure the yarn is somewhat close to the front, but not so much that you might lose your yarn. Knit behind the knee. Purl front of the knee. You can see how I end up working a little tightly. In this case, I'm trying to be mindful that I'm not doing that. Knit front of the knee. Purl behind the knee. Or front of the knee. I am so sorry. Purl front of the knee. Knit behind the knee. Purl in front of the knee. I slip stitched it over, and that's not what we were supposed to do. I was trying to not be loose about it, and I went and did a slip. Okay. purl front of the knee, knit behind the knee. Make sure this stuff goes on. Purl in front of the knee. I drop my yarn in my lap again. Oh well, I have like a huge amount pulled out from the centers of the skein. So now the tail's over here. I try my best to make sure it's not going to accidentally get used. So now that we did that, instead of like what you would do with a rib stitch, which I'll do another video on, instead of making it match this way, you do a purl. So it's front of the knee. So you're kind of like going backwards about it. You're not trying to match the other one side or the other, not like what you would do with a rib stitch. So purl in front of the knee, knit behind the knee. So you're doing opposites. Purl in front of the knee, knit behind the knee, purl in front of the knee, knit behind the knee. I must apologize if I move out of frame ever. I'm going to be getting new glasses. I'm not sure when they're going to come in. And so I tend to pull stuff closer to me so I can see it. So purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. So we're going to do a purl in front of the knee. Knit behind the knee. Purl in front of the knee. Knit behind the knee. And whether or not you see it coming together, I'm trying to make sure, you can sort of see how the bumps alternate. This I'm making a little bit loose just for my sake. So you would have like a bump down here on this row, bump up here, bump down, bump up, bump down, bump up, bump down. And I will do a few rows of this. Just try to keep track. Remember, bump up, bump down, bump up, bump down, going back and forth. Knit behind the knee, purl in front of the knee. Keep doing that to where you get at least a good size swatch to where you can understand how it looks and feel more comfortable doing the stitch. And I will meet you back in a bit. I am back. When I actually had attempted to, I'm going to back out a little bit more, finish this and show you how to cast off, an alarm went off on my phone and it messed up the ending. So I'll have to do another video here soon to show you how to bind off, because I had done it with this one and I was really frustrated when I realized my phone completely just went black after an alarm went off on my phone to remind me of lunch. Before we go, one of the things, as you can tell, that I really like is that with this stitch, it creates kind of like a pillowy texture. And you can also count the rows so much easier, starting from, you know, your foundation row. I'm going to turn it this way. Starting with your foundation row. Get your little row right here, your foundation row. And then with the very bottom bump, like right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I did kind of mess up a little bit on the top, getting slightly distracted, but 1, 2, 3, 4, you can easily count your rows that way. There is another way that you can count rows. I'll have to do another video. It's with kind of like a running stitch like you would do for sewing, except you do it with yarn and you can always pull it out when you're done if you need help trying to figure out how many rows that you just did, instead of having, say, like a finger counter that goes on your finger, or writing it down, like marking it down, which is not, it depends on what you want to do. But I find that with seed stitch, when you're just trying to count rows initially, I like it because you can just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I will be right back to show you how to cast off, because I feel bad that my alarm went off on my phone to remind me of lunch. And yes, I will come back here soon. Okay, and I am back after doing the first swatch here. I did a much smaller one so I can show you about casting off. Now this one, you have knit. There's several different types of casting off, binding off. This one is a knit cast off. And so what you'll do, you have it on your left hand. You're going to knit 2 of the first stitches. So knit behind the knee, knit behind the knee. Remember not to be too tight. And then take your left hook right here, put it in the right loop. Then very carefully, I'm going to try to tip this so you can see it. Bring it through, cast it off, and now you just have 1. Now instead of knitting 2, you just knit 1, knit behind the knee, left needle, right loop, bring the left loop through the right one because you're pulling it over, and you're going to be slowly doing a cast off. This on one side will create more of a curved end of the row, and with blocking sometimes it can be straightened out. Now then you knit behind the knee,